What's up, guys? Just got back from the Weiss event. I went to Atlanta this weekend. Technically got back yesterday around Monday, but had a little bit of car trouble getting home. Just very long weekend, barely any sleep. So my general thoughts was a lot different result than I was expecting. Played with a couple friends for the 3v3 event, but my opinion on the game and itself and the way it's used to be perceived versus how I perceive it now is much different. I always played Weiss as more like a casual game, and it was more of a shock to see how many people actually did take that game competitively seriously. Like, don't get me wrong, I do play other card games competitively, but I always saw Weiss as a way, way more casual game versus what it's become now. And my interpretation of that was definitely a downfall that I had this weekend. Since I had very high expectations of doing well this event with my group of friends, unfortunately we did not get there. I think our finishing record was 3-3, so that was a pretty big thing. I do see, though, that even though a lot more people do take the game seriously than I thought, there is a little bit of a downside slash something that saddens me is seeing, like, in reality, how big of a difference, like, general skill level. I shouldn't say skill level. I say, like, the game itself has an element of luck that's unavoidable no matter how much you try to mitigate it. And that seemed to come full proportion for me during this event. So Weiss has a gaming function where you have a resource system, which is your deck. It's very weird. Like, your deck is your resource and your damage, and like everything contributing to that is what makes your deck work, essentially. I was put into a lot of weird scenarios where I just couldn't mitigate certain damage a lot of times, and it got to a point where I was too far behind to make up for the loss in damage, and I wasn't able to really like push and protect myself from winning or losing the game. I also noticed I had one interesting round, though, where I think it was after our second loss. We ended up playing just more so for fun because it was 6 rounds, cut the top 8. But our tiebreakers, since we lost out pretty early, we couldn't really probably top that point. And it was interesting because I actually watched one of my opponents stack my deck. Since there's something called climaxes within the deck itself that help you mitigate damage. My opponent just seemed like he was having a bad day. His team just got a double loss and wasn't really talking throughout most of the match. And something I'm very keen on catching is a lot of times when I offer to cut the deck, he would just tap it. But then there was an interesting scenario during a late game push where I was mitigating a bunch of damage. And you don't necessarily deck out in this game, but you do reshuffle your deck to regain resources, but you do also take damage in the process. So I noticed when it was a key point in the game, this was one scenario he chose to cut the deck, and I saw the way he was shuffling my deck. And he handed it back to me. I chose not to cut it, just to confirm a point that I already had. And I proceeded to lose during that turn, even though I really shouldn't have. So I quickly picked up my deck. I checked to see where my climaxes were, the cards that basically mitigate damage for you, and they were all at the bottom of my deck. To be honest, I would have brought this up as a bigger point, but I was just out of energy at that point and didn't want to really, I didn't feel the need to bring it up. But it was just interesting to see that I thought Weiss was like kind of like one of the last games to just be kind of chill. And after the events of that weekend, for me kind of killed it. So I just don't know how I want to like continue playing the game or viewing the game as a whole anymore. I'll probably still play the game casually with friends, but on a competitive level, I personally don't feel anything for it, which is kind of sad. Unfortunately, Bushiroad also has very weird policy and very weird tournament restrictions. They were on the hunt for unlicensed products. I actually had one opponent of mine was asked by one of the judges to not play with their playmat in one of the rounds because it wasn't a licensed product, which I thought was interesting. They have a very weird policy that you're not allowed to play non-Bushiroad card games inside the hall, which is odd. I've never heard of that from any TCG, but okay, sure, why not? I don't know how their tiebreaker or tournament software works, but it's very weird because the way you identify your team, they ask for a team name, and you just get assigned a number, which kind of kills the team name aspect a little bit. Granted, we entered with a team name that a lot of the people did not like, which was we chose the 250th over this or something, and they did not like that team name, so they told us we would have to change it if we made Top Cut, which I thought was weird that we'd have to change it during Top Cut, but now I think I understand a little bit why. It's because our tournament software uses numbers to assign players and teams rather than an actual team name itself, which goes to show that the Konami tournament software is just by far the most superior software to run a tournament. Like, it blows my mind that Magic, Pokemon, Bandai, all these other card games can like fail to run a proper tournament software, and Konami just has the best tournament software for like the last 10, 15 years. I mean, you could arguably say it's the last 20 years because the KTS software is based off the original Mantis system, and the same guy made the system. It's such a simple system, but no one can get a tournament software right, which is just so mind-blowing to me. But that's a tangent for another day. But overall thoughts, I don't see myself playing in a Weiss event in the future. I'm not crazy about how Bushiroad runs their events. The only redeeming quality I got out of that event itself was selling some older Weiss cards to a vendor, since it's very difficult to move them in my area. Since there isn't a huge Weiss scene, there's actually only one real local that I go to that has Weiss on Thursdays. And at most, I think we've gotten like 13, 14 people. It's usually around 8 to 12 on average. But that's been my thoughts on this event. If you like these type of videos, let me know. Subscribe if you like my channel and my content. And hopefully you'll see more in the future. Thanks for watching.